Best segment of the week, Crossing the Streams. Before I get to it, got to give a big shout out to Beverly in Upperville, Paul in Fairfax, and Cynthia in Springfield. They are the latest to donate in our Help a Hero campaign for the paralyzed veterans of America. Only asking for $49. Help a hero, help a paralyzed veteran out with medical care services when they need it most. They fought for us. Now let them know it wasn't for nothing. Call right now, 800-701-0565. That's 800-701-0565 to donate. Or you can go to 1067thefandc.com. I donated too, so you need to as well. Now it's time for Crossing the Streams, and I'm going to yell at our first guest. He's here to talk about some movies. Aha! Eric Davis, the guy I used to call a friend. A guy I used to welcome onto this radio show from Fandango and Movies.com, is on the Mitsubishi Electric Heating Hotline. Eric, you know I like the cut of your jib. I like a lot of your work, and we're like-minded on a lot of things. But how dare you write a piece called Mockingjay Part 1 is the Empire Strikes Back of the Hunger Games. You go too far, sir.
Well, you forgot the why. It's why Mockingjay Part 1 is the Empire Strikes Back of the Hunger Games series. And you know what? I totally feel it. I saw it last night. Really enjoyed the film. I'm someone who was kind of on board after the first Hunger Games, but I was like, okay, it's a step up from Twilight, but it's not really there yet. Catching Fire, I was very impressed with. Mockingjay Part 1 is dark. It's damaged. It takes a complete left turn, completely switches up the dynamic. And it's really interesting. And, you know, Katniss is very much in a place in this sequel where Luke Skywalker was in Empire Strikes Back. You know, he won a fight, but can he win a war? And it's the same with her. She won a fight, but can she win a war? Can she become this savior, this hero that everyone thinks she is? And it's really complicated in this film. And, you know, a lot of people are giving it some scratch for splitting the last book into two. But I think the four films really lets this third film breathe a little bit, and it lets the character breathe. They break her down, they tear her apart, and now they're going to put her back together again. I like it. I like that they didn't rush this series. I really like this third movie. I think it's dark, and it's dark in all the right places, just like Empire was. The ending of this film is very reminiscent to the ending of Empire Strikes Back, and you know what? I'm digging it. I'm not calling this series the next Star Wars yet, but you know what? It feels very similar. A lot of those same themes of dealing with a rebellion and revolution and war. And if anything, this series hits closer to home than the Star Wars series did. And you'll see what I mean. You go see it this weekend, man. You tell me.
All right. I'm going to pull a Danny Rouillet right here, Eric, and I'm not proud of it. Have you read the books?
I have not read the books.
Okay. Here's where I can't buy into what you're selling. In my opinion, this is the weakest book of the three, and they split it into two movies. I just can't see it, and you're comparing it to, in one of my top 5 movies of all time, in my mind, the best sequel that's ever been made, if you want to call it that inside of a trilogy, unless you're going by the Scream rules, and Empire Strikes Back. I just hope you're not going too far here.
Hey, some people may think I'm going too far. I didn't read the books. So I'm approaching these movies with a blind eye. I have no idea how it's going to end. I don't look at, you know, I think it's going to impact you more if you know the step-by-step of what happens in that Mockingjay book. But I'm going at it, you know, from what I see, and the way they do this, they handle this movie feels very reminiscent of Empire, of how they break down that character and break down this rebellion just when they think they're getting a leg up. It's like the rug is pulled out from under them. One of their guys is taken off and transformed into something else. And it's deep and it's powerful and it's emotional. And a lot of those same themes are in this film. And, you know, I just think they did it right. You know, I have to see this part 2. I want to see the part 2 now and see how it all ties together. But you know what? Right now I'm still digging it. I'm still on board with it. And, you know, someone who read the books may feel differently, but that's how I feel.
All right. Follow Eric on Twitter, at Eric Davis. That's Eric with a K, Davis with an A. Talk with me about Dumb and Dumber 2, the red band trailer or whatever. It looked like it was going to be vulgar. The reviews were not very good, but who cares if it's funny? I don't care if stuffy movie critics think it's funny. I haven't gone out to see it, though, because I'm getting a very unique on-demand vibe from it. It did fairly well financially, of course, not what the first one did, but we all knew it wasn't going to do that. What was your reaction to this movie and the business it did?
Yeah, I'm someone who kind of grew up in the 90s, and so I'm someone who could... The film itself feels like it was made in 1996, and it's hard for people these days because our comedic sensibilities in the 90s, when the Farley brothers, the Something About Mary, Me, Myself, and Irene, Dumb and Dumber, that was their heyday, and it was a different comedic landscape than it is today, where we have our hangovers and our really filthy, raunchy sort of improv comedies, if you will. So I think some audiences are like, yeah, this is kind of funny when I was in my dorm room 15 years ago, but not so much anymore, because I think our tastes have just evolved. But you know what? I find a lot of it still funny. A lot of the jokes really work in that Dumb and Dumber way. So I think if you're just like, really love the first one and you're watching it on cable constantly and you're just quoting it like mad, you're going to like this one. It sort of reminds me of that Anchorman vibe too, where it's like Anchorman, if you get it and you're on board with what they're dishing out in that first one, then of course you're going to be on board with what they're dishing out in the second one. And I think that applies with Dumb and Dumber. And I just feel bad for the Farley brothers because they're sort of still making movies that belong in the 90s, even though it's 2014. But you know what? Some people still dig that. So I'm curious to see. I've heard, maybe they'll go back and do like a Something About Mary sequel now that Dumb and Dumber 2 is so successful. I'd watch it.
I feel like I belong in the 90s almost every day, so I can relate, Eric. It's at Eric Davis, Fandango Movies. How do people check out the podcast, Eric?
Yeah, just go on to movies.com. Just type in Fancast, and you'll see. We'll have a whole bunch of stuff on there.
A bunch of you guys, both of you, screaming about Interstellar back and forth. It seems that debate actually mirrored what everyone said. Just real quick, Eric, I gotta run, but I've never seen a movie be as polarizing as that Interstellar flick. People either love it or they hate it.
Yeah, because it's challenging, man. It gives you a lot to think about. It's complex and it's brainy and weird, and sort of things that you want to happen don't happen. Christopher Nolan doesn't hand you things on a silver platter like a lot of these Hollywood blockbusters do these days. He makes you work for it. So Interstellar, is a movie you're going to have to watch a couple of times and kind of dig into it a little bit and see if it's for you or see if it's just something that you hate. But, I think that's what happens when a brainy blockbuster comes along and people are like, wait, this isn't the Avengers. How come you're not just giving me everything? No, it's not the Avengers. It's not Guardians of the Galaxy. You're going to have to work for it a little bit, so deal with it.
Yeah, I'm sure Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't a good movie. Eric, you and I are going to have words the next time you come on this show. Thank you very much, bud. I always appreciate it.
Bye.
There he is, at Eric Davis. Give him a follow. Now it's time to talk a little gaming.
Video games.
My guy Brian Shea's got his Finchers and everything. His David Finchers, Xbox Magazine, Kotaku, Joystick, IGN. You name a big-ass video game website, he's got something to do with it. He joins me right now on the Mitsubishi Electric Heating Hotline. And, Brian, the first thing I got to ask you is, what the hell is going on with Assassin's Creed Unity, and what the hell is going on with Far Cry 4? They got patches. We don't need those stinking patches all over it. They're having all kinds of issues. What's with all the bugs with these games?
Oh, man. Well, Assassin's Creed Unity was definitely worse off when it launched. That came out last week, and it's been kind of a rough go for it so far. I mean, there's been issues, everything from, the main character getting stuck when he's trying to climb things. I've witnessed that myself. Something I haven't witnessed, though, is the big one where faces are just disappearing from characters. Like, you'll look at a character, and you'll see they just have floating eyeballs and floating mouth.
That's creepy.
That's all they are. It's really creepy.
Yeah, and this is something that I've kind of noticed with the next gen stuff. I'm blown away by a lot of the graphics that we're talking about here. It's just, especially the latest Call of Duty, there's some cutscenes where I feel like I'm watching, a spacey movie, not a video game, but a lot of them are buggy. Is this just something that we forgot happened when the One and the PS3, the regular Xbox, the big black Xbox, and the PS3 launched, and it's something we're just going to have to get used to?
I think that it is kind of something that's going to be a trend going forward. I mean, we're already seeing it constantly with current releases. I mean, either it's going to be the online component is going to have an issue at launch, like we saw with Halo Master Chief Collection, like we see every single time a Battlefield game launches, or the single player is going to have some bugs that need to be patched. The fact that we have this online infrastructure that can allow us to update a game and, fix some stuff that slipped through the cracks is awesome. That's probably one of the biggest innovations in the games industry the past 10 years. But it could be also seen as a safety net, or beyond a safety net. Because right now, I think we should be using it as a safety net, but it's kind of being used as a little bit more at some points, I think.
It's at Brian P. Shea on Twitter. If you are a gamer, you owe it to yourself to go ahead and follow him. EA CFO Blake Jorgensen came out and said that Microsoft is catching up to Sony. Sony's latest home console report, 13.5 million shipped. I think Xbox said they've shipped about 10 million. I would have to assume the reason they're catching up, the $50 price cut for the holidays, is going to be a big addition for them.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, first of all, earlier this year, they got rid of they made it so you could buy the Xbox One without the Kinect, which cut the price in $100 to $100 less right there, which made it even with PS4, which I think is what really killed the Xbox One when it launched last year. But then they cut down the additional $50, and they add some really awesome bundles. Like they have an Assassin's Creed Unity bundle, which, even though it has all these bugs, it really is a great game. And I think that once they kind of stabilize that game, it's going to be a real game to watch for this year. But then there's Sunset Overdrive, which is a big exclusive that just came out for Xbox One. It hasn't really been selling all that well, but it's just further bolstering that Xbox One lineup. And really, it's kind of a weak lineup for the PlayStation 4 this holiday season. There's not really any big exclusives. I mean, Little Big Planet 3 came out this week, but it hasn't been really hyped as much as, the Master Chief Collection for Halo or Sunset Overdrive was.
It's not. I got to get your thoughts while I have you on Advanced Warfare. I'm not a huge COD guy. I got tired of it. I thought it was worn out. Modern Warfare did me in. Black Ops, I enjoyed it for a minute. Black Ops 2 is not my bag. I think this has completely revitalized the series. I love the exoskeletons. The multiplayer, I think, is more competitive because of it. And I'm a huge Kevin Spacey guy, and I thought that his portrayal in that game was as good as something that he would do in the movies. I love their ability to land these big name stars. What did you think of the game?
It almost seems like you're watching like House of Cards season 10 or something.
It really does, yeah.
Yeah, he's great in that game. I mean, there's some points where like the animation for his face doesn't really sync up perfectly, but I would say 90% of the time it looks like you're looking right into Spacey's eyes, and it's kind of creepy. The additions to the gameplay are great. I mean, I like smart grenades. I like the double jump. It doesn't really affect the campaign all that much, but the campaign has some really cool moments in it. But the multiplayer is definitely affected the most from these gameplay enhancements, I feel. And I mean, that's where most people spend the biggest chunk of their time with Call of Duty games anyway.
Yeah, and I was getting wiped out left and right before, and I could actually get at least 50-50 kill-death ratio at this point, so I'm happy. At Brian P. Shea, right. Give him a follow. Thanks a lot, buddy. Always appreciate the insight.
All right, man. Until next time, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of the week. Always my pleasure, and that's my favorite segment of the week.
Crossing the Streams every Wednesday on Chad Dukes versus the World.